ladies and gentlemen, it's my pride privilege that I have an opportunity to address this august group. I feel a little small speaking after stalwarts, Honorable Minister Mr. Mitra, our COI, Mr. Rajan Matthew, and of course Mr. Gautam, who just spoke before me. Over the last 18 months we have partnered with various state government where a similar initiative in terms of conclave and symposiums were organized. While I represent Vodafone as a profession, but I stand here as a citizen of this great country, which requires speedy adoption of new technology. I am all right. Enabling government to reach out Indian population, and Vodafone is a keen, capable and committed towards jointly working with Government of Bengal in this journey. Now, the new government at center deliberated in detail their journey for next 5 years in terms of government to citizen and citizen to government communication. Right from our infant stage, we would remember that every day we open a newspaper, and at that time Doordarshan, we would get so many various awareness about what government is doing for citizens. But there aren't any communication method or platform where citizen can communicate with the government. And this Digital India dream of Government of India followed by State of Bengal would be enabler. Is it possible to dream of an India of 2020 that is safe, smart, have better health care and education opportunities and connected to the right last mile? The Digital India powered by technology, almost all speakers informed and discussed, deliberated the importance of technology. In our recent and frequent interaction with the Honorable Telecom Minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, we have discussed the role that a large telecom players like us would play in Government of India's Digital India dream. I am sure most of you are aware that this dream can be delivered by using power of three. The Digital India objectives are robust delivery infrastructure, digitally available, on-demand and accessible service to every citizen, empowered citizen who participate in public sector. A speaker before me did deliberate on various certificates. Let me tell you that Digital India provides a digital locker. Right from the day of birth, and we get a birth certificate, and at the time of after the death we get death certificate. A normal citizen of India has 12 different certificates. In past, we were supposed to get one of our certificate, get it a photocopy and notarized, and then apply for a ration card, apply for a driving license, apply for a passport, because that was the identity. This is an era of past. Today the digital locker would ensure that all your certificates are hosted on cloud. Through your Aadhaar card ID, you punch the number and all the 12 certificates will be easily available to you, and the government through a single window approach can deliver any type of information which you need. Some of the key platforms that can empower these three pillars by a telecom operator like us are mobility, data and voice, Internet of Things, which is commonly known as M2M, wireless and wireline connectivity, cloud and big data analytics. Technology and specifically telecom is the fuel that will thrust the dream forward through a smart solution and smart governance. Speedy adoption from E to M governance. I am sure most of you are aware that in 2006, the Government of India and State of West Bengal launched e-governance. The e-governance requirement was the transfer of information or accumulation of information on a desktop. Then we migrated or got little more educated, we shifted to laptop. But the problem is the adoption to the last citizen of our country in the rural area or remotest of the remote. They do not have means to buy these costly technology and hardwares. The mobile availability of 900 million in India would ensure through a simple data solution that these rural and remotest of remote citizens are able to access these information. Time has come to ensure that we adopt from or migrate from e-governance to m-governance. It's one of the fastest mobile, social and secured intelligence of India, which is the largest in the world, would ensure that the adoption is much speedier and faster. Information delivery to the public is the key task and responsibility of government. This is essential for promoting democracy and creating accountability. The basic and universal cornerstones of good governance are quality of service, speedy response and trust. And we internally also say that the trust is the single most important aspect for people to adopt. My father used to work for civil services. He retired in Kolkata as the Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. The day he retired, his biggest worry was what will happen and when he will get his PF. Today, the mobility infrastructure has ensured in a manner that through a push of a button, your EPF gets transferred to your designated savings account. Honorable Minister of Finance, West Bengal, did mention that there is no requirement of check to transfer any money, which could be scholarship, could be subsidy, or could be simple wage transfer from government to a worker. National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, the government of West Bengal ensures 100 man days will be given to each and every rural worker. The problem today is that we can avoid check, but you cannot avoid bank. Almost 60% of our rural India does not have bank account, although the new government in center did open bank account. But it is impossible because still in a remote area with a population of 5,000 people in a village, they have to travel on foot for 9 kilometers to reach a bank. However, the mobile telecom service providers BTS tower is available within 200 square meter radius, and that's why we developed a product known as M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a product where a mobile subscriber can transfer an amount to a pre-designated another mobile subscriber. In the state of Maharashtra, the government of Maharashtra is transferring scholarship to 80,000 students every month on the first day of the month through Vodafone M-Pesa mobile to mobile money transfer. It is completely cashless, it is secured and reaches with a speed. In India today, we being the second largest telecom in the world in terms of number of wireless connection after China, poised to soon become the world's largest mobile telecom market, is at inflection point. Would it be simple mobile phone that will act as a driver and a vehicle for government initiative? From e-governance, time has come to adopt m-governance. While I say that, we have the capacity, we have the caliber to deliver. While I discuss the M-Pesa, one of the top priority of any government official is reducing the queue. I was speaking to the IT secretary in government of Karnataka. He served as an additional secretary in West Bengal, Srivat Krishna. He said that one of the major tasks the government has is to reduce footfall of citizens. Today you would find long queues in each and every department, and especially in treasury, either disbursement or reimbursement. The only way you can adopt this is through mobile governance, where you host the complete database on a cloud or on a server, because you do not have the infrastructure to cater to ever increasing population who would visit your office and would demand basic services like toilet, waiting area or well ventilated rooms, which is not possible for some time, especially in the remotest of the remote of India. While we talk about the change, Vodafone has a very dedicated CSR activities, which is M Women, M Education, M Health and M Agriculture. We know value is not only a commercial entry into our book. We are a socially responsible citizen and a corporate entity. It is the ability to give back to the community. We have been active in driving social change in the field such as education, health, agriculture, enabling livelihood of women entrepreneurs through ERP, which is embedded on your mobile phone. Creating smart classrooms. We have a web box through which we can have a distant learning position. We have M Health, where we administer, like in Gujarat, almost 44,000 ASHA workers, which is accredited social health activities, with a single responsibility to dramatically reduce infant mortality rate. Our data network ensures that the moment a woman is pregnant, she is registered through a mobile data application, and throughout her pregnancy, she is been tracked in terms of various vaccination, medicines, and her health and hygiene. After the infant is born, for 45 days, the complete care in terms of medical and hygiene is done through this data network. This ASHA worker initiative is also adopted in places like Haryana, Karnataka, Punjab, and many other states under the ministry known as National Rural Health Mission. I would appeal Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry to include us in any future deliberation related to education, agriculture, health and power, because we have the international best practice. To just give you an example, I lived in Calcutta for almost 9 years, and when I came last evening, I find that the traffic has become much more, the whole road has become much more crowded. While I was in Germany, I came to know that the biggest problem of traffic congestion in Germany is because a particular car is trying to find a place to park their car, and they will go round and round in circles, but because of which 40% of traffic congestion in Germany is because of that car. We understood the complete challenge in hand. We created an application, and today the moment you enter in a congested area, your dashboard will flash which parking way, in which parking area there is a parking slot available and number of that parking slot. It has reduced 40% of congestion in Germany. There are various small initiatives. To give you an example, that in state of Maharashtra, especially in Bombay, the complete pothole tracking is done on our platform. The moment a pothole has a problem, either it is related to switch, either it is related to cover, or it is related to blockage, the Municipal Corporation of Bombay gets the photograph and is able to monitor thereafter. Some of the big projects which we also facilitate through our mobile governance and data is Service Shiksha Abhiyan, where we ensured that the basic and primary education is done through mobile data. Here in Bengal, I am very proud to say and share that the through mobilization of mobile data, we are currently serving Matir Katha in remote areas of West Bengal. Our last mile is such which is created in a manner that it will serve to the last citizen of India. As commonly said, that the government should not be in the state, government should not be in the center, government should be and the governance should be in the hand of the last citizen of our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. Now may I request Mr. Rajarshi Sengupta, Senior Director, Deloitte and Touche Consulting India Private Limited, to please come up on the stage. A member of the consulting leadership team of Deloitte India, Mr. Sengupta leads the technology integration practice of the firm in India and also heads the Deloitte India innovation team as the Chief Innovation Officer for the firm. Mr. Sengupta focuses on leading and delivering complex business transformation in clients by leveraging information technology and in using information technology as a driver for business change. Mr. Sengupta specializes in the area of information management and business analytics and lead analytics for consulting in Deloitte India. His other area of focus is around technology strategy and architecture and working with companies to carry out digital transformation for their business via technology enablement. His work in innovation is directly related to both analytics and digital. During his 23+ years in technology consulting across US, UK, India, Middle East and Southeast Asia, Mr. Sengupta had led over 250+ assignments in technology strategy, analytics and information management. He has been invited on a regular basis to teach and take sessions on technology at the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. Mr. Sengupta, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to come and speak at Bengal Chamber of Commerce, and I thank the Bengal Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to come and present on enabling a digital India. I think this is one of the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities that India has at this point of time, and over the next 20-25 minutes we try to put across the Deloitte point of view on what we feel are some of the key areas around a digital India. So I have broken it up into three simple sessions or three simple sections. First is, what exactly do we mean by digital? Because there seems to be quite a lot of confusion around what digital actually entails. What exactly do we mean by having a digital strategy or a digital empowerment? What is the impact that we see across industries? Then I'll talk specifically about the public sector, because that is the remit which has been given to me, what we are seeing in India and what are some of the trends that are coming about. And I'd like to end with some of the key architectural paradigms which are fairly key in this particular area and in this particular empowerment. So without much further ado, what exactly is digital? Now, this should be fairly familiar to all of you. After a lot of iteration, it has been finally decided that digital is actually the convergence of analytics, social business, and please note that advisedly I'm not using the term social media, but I'm using the term social business, mobility and cloud. Now, cloud is an infrastructure choice. Mobility, as was pointed out by my earlier speaker, is probably one of the biggest empowerment devices that is happening in India at this point of time. In terms of social business, more than social media, it is a question of the social networks. How do I connect with other people in a behavioral manner? What are my common interests? What are the common areas where I want to talk about is something which is being tapped into. And I know Vodafone is one of the key folks who are taking a look at a lot of social network analytics. And in terms of analytics and the combination of mobility and analytics, for example, right now, we are doing the analytics work for M-Pesa Vodafone out of Mumbai, and I had a steering committee yesterday. That is one of the key areas where people are trying to understand how you can use mobility solutions for financial inclusion and how can you drive financial inclusion through technology, through digital empowerment. So some of the broad strategic imperatives that the government or the social sector has in terms of financial inclusion, in terms of what we call as reaching out to the bottom of the pyramid, in terms of greater social empowerment, all of these are some of the things, are the strategic imperatives, just like there are strategic imperatives that drive the actions of a private sector enterprise. These are some of the strategic imperatives that are driving what we are seeing playing out in the public or the government sector. Now, along with these four, I would like to highlight some of the things that are getting to be extremely important, and we'll touch upon that. One is the area of governance. Recognize that this is providing a significant challenge from a governance perspective to some of the traditional IT shops or the CIOs organizations that were there earlier. More and more organizations, including governments, are connecting to other systems or enterprises who are outside the ambit of their control. And the more and more as this happens, and we'll talk about it in the architecture paradigm, with the evolution of something which is called outside-in architecture, more and more this is going to be critical as to how you govern your systems, what are the governance procedures, and therefore from that, what are some of the security and the other issues that need to be in place. Now, one point I'd like to make, that the heart of the digital empowerment, be it in the private sector or the government sector, is the concept of the connected consumer or the connected citizen. Now, there are three ways in which Deloitte feels this connection is going to happen. I'll start out with the middle one, which is technology or technical connectivity. I think this is very well known now. Any smartphone can talk to any smartphone. There are examples of retail customers trying to understand whether they can track some of their specific loyalty card customers through the use of smartphones, recognizing their presence within a particular aisle in a retail organization, and therefore positioning specific goods and products for them. The social connectivity is also something which is fairly common. 6 years ago, if I were to do a Bengal Chamber of Commerce seminar and I were to ask that how many of you have a Facebook or a Twitter account, maybe 20% of the audience would raise your hands. If I today ask how many of you have Facebook accounts, perhaps the more pertinent question would be how many Facebook accounts are we talking about per person? Because people these days have multiple Facebook accounts. So the social connectivity and the technical connectivity are things which are very well explored, and I would suggest that if you look carefully at things like Facebook or Twitter or so on, increasingly the behavioral connectivity is also making an immediate impact. And that is where the concept of social network comes in rather than social media. What we mean by a social network is a group of people who have a common set of interests, who can be leveraged for a common particular goal. And to give you an example, in Facebook, I'm sure you must have noticed multiple groups which focus on music, which focus on films, which focus on other behavioral activities, which draws together a common set of almost friends and families, to use a term from telecom, in order to put together a community of interest. And that is the social network. That is where the influencers are going to be extremely critical. Is this going to be critical from a public sector perspective? Yes, it is. Because as we have seen in the past few elections in India, social networks, we talk about it as social media, but social networks have played an enormous role in getting together communities of supporters and in talking about some of the political goals that that particular community or that particular network wants to achieve. So behavioral connectivity in form of a social network, the connected citizen, is something which is going to be extremely key. And with the rapid penetration of smartphones and cellular telephony in India, it is not unusual for people to have cellular or telephony infrastructure even if the physical infrastructure is not up to the mark. So these are the three ways in which the connections will happen. These are the three ways in people will reach out to the consumer or the citizen. In knowing the consumer or the citizen, not just KYC but beyond KYC, in recognizing the new customers or the consumers and recognizing the unmet needs of existing consumers. For example, one of the largest life insurance companies where we are helping them to understand the digital strategy is focusing entirely into the untapped potential of Northeast India. If you take a look at Northeast India and what is called the 7 states, it represents an enormous catchment area, particularly in the age group of, let's say, 22 to 35, which is sort of the group that all companies want to target in terms of education, in terms of disposable income, and that is a completely untapped customer segment in India at this point of time, which is where companies are trying to understand what are the unmet needs of these particular people, of these particular communities, which have probably not been served to the extent possible. Reach. I'm sure you have heard of the story that a group of Austrian mountaineers spent a lot of time and effort in climbing up to the top of the Everest. When they climbed to the top of the Everest, one of their cell phones started ringing, and there was this guy sitting on the top of Everest, an Indian guy who was giving them a missed call. So, you know, the reach of the cellular telephony has been enormous, and the ability to tap into areas where there has been a lack of physical infrastructure, but you can tap into this, the dealers and distributor systems, be it from an FMCG perspective, the independent financial advisors who in India sell bulk of the life insurance, AMC and other policies. This ability to reach out to the end consumer or the end citizen has become enormous. Similarly, in public sector, we are seeing the same thing pan out in terms of health delivery, in terms of delivery of healthcare, in terms of delivery of agricultural information. And what this is effectively doing from a social empowerment perspective is that it is breaking down the asymmetry of information that was earlier there. It is making sure that every segment of the population has access to the right information which was previously not possible, and therefore it is breaking down the barriers of this information asymmetry, which leads to a lot of social disempowerment. The more information people have, the more informed choices that they can make, and that is how the empowerment can actually happen. Relevance. Can I offer personalized experiences? One of the folks everyone in Kolkata knows, one of the key IT folks who are very active in Kolkata, when he moved to a sort of an NGO company, working for an NGO company, he told me something very interesting. He said, having worked in the private sector, I used to think that in rural India, you know, brands like Pepsi and the others, you know, would be very prominent. His experience after working there for 6 months is that there is only one brand in rural India, and that's government. So if you take a look at it, the various e-kiosks, the various village level entrepreneurs that are getting set up, the ability to push government products and even public sector products like life insurance from LIC is enormous. So the ability to position a relevant service, and the relevant services were entirely around education and healthcare, two of the biggest challenges in the social sector, through these paradigms is enormous. What do we see in terms of digital disruption in the industry? Because this is a disruption which is going to affect most of the industries as we know it, and I'm going to focus on public sector, where the impact is quite high, but the pace of change is slow, as one would expect of government and public sector. As you can understand, the biggest change is happening in telecom, media and technology, and in financial services and consumer business. But this is very interesting because I would have expected manufacturing to be up there, and which is probably an indicator that perhaps Internet of Things is taking a little more time from a monetization perspective. But this is something that is a part of a Deloitte research that we had put together. It's across the world, and it's interesting to see public sector being in the top paradigm. So how do you get ready for digital disruption, which is something which is extremely key? Like any other disruption, this has to be driven from a strategic perspective. If your strategic imperative is to know the customer better, or to know the citizen better, to have a 360-degree view,